당저 야 살람 람 냠린지에 안나 타바다 템지긴 벽고 본토에게 람 냠린지 상기 다 살람게 남자로서 쉬어이나 가상한저 디고 쉬어바래 된다다 지다 안절 직람 냠린지 짐바데 짐발 마소나 초람 저람 통람 곰람 밀로람 심데 아니 디 짐발 마소나 나치 다디 년되라야 지바래 년되 초람 저람 통람 곰람 밀로람 세 대 rangyelaya ane cholam jona kola milolam se dine dinashin da jaju teba chimbe na cholam jolam antona kola milolam se ne lam rimba nga chide da odusine sumga domba ina lam gishimba jonga chaigorwa da nga chibe sum jonga ro 지상 가슴 jonga sigore da jidan도 제 한도 디rimba dire se 중화도 년주랑아도 년주 소랑주랑아 랑제철 소랑주랑아 전시심비기 소랑주랑아 시도다 중화차로와.
Good morning. Last night we continued to look at the presentation on paths and grounds, where we continued to look at the sequence of training that a practitioner engages in order to achieve a path and to develop their consciousness from that initial path through to the attainment of the next path and so forth. So if we think of the different types of practitioners, there are two included within the Theravada type of practitioner, a hero and a solitary realizer. The hero practitioner strives to achieve first the path of accumulation through the generation of uncontrived definite emergence. Thereafter, they strive to develop their mind into the path of preparation, and thirdly, strive to gain the direct realization of emptiness into the path of seeing, developing that into the path of meditation, and thereafter into the path of no more training. So those are the 5 paths of the practitioner who's of the hero type. The second type of Theravada practitioner, a solitary realizer, has the same entry point into the path of accumulation, the generation of uncontrived definite emergence, and it's the same progression through cultivating their consciousness into to the point where they gain an inferential realization of emptiness with the union of calm abiding meditative insight, and attain the path of preparation, and thereafter developing their consciousness to the point where they gain a direct realization of emptiness, the path of seeing, developing this ever further to the path of meditation and the path of no more training. So these are the same 5. These are the 5 parts of a practitioner who's of the solitary realizer type, and it's the same entry points and progression points as the path of a hero. The Bodhisattva practitioner also strives to develop those same 5 parts of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more training. So therefore, we see that each type of practitioner has their own respective 5 parts, meaning that it can be presented as being 15 paths, 15 paths, of which 5 for each type of practitioner.
안데네시 다데네 자다 간주 가서 쉬야디 간주기 타르바토베기 소소게 자주 셈기군에 람바 많이 받제다 소소랑 타르바토베게 되노 산이 라니 코에 동아를 저에게 체도 타르바토베 람냠네 지다기 좀 받을 쉬르와 지다데네 자 델야 람봉아서 가르고세네 코발이야 아니 지게 코비기 꾼 강아디게 두시 동아디게 삼다제 델레 코비 동아디라 타고도 선배게 두시네 삼다나 코비 동아라 탈베 탈바 톱고도 선배게 다 탈바 되냐기 듬바디 파게제 다디 야네 야노 장발라 되네 탈베게 되냐기 삼바디 쮸마만 바게 송바이나 디 솔람세도 두고레제 솔람 차고레제 가상아 두체 다 솔람 미네가서 조사야 되게제 아니 데네 야제 데네 소름 미토네 졸람 그티 토고레 랍나 데네 다메 발미페 동바 다메 유동 다메라 미비기 아니 신이 줍데네 야나 라동 줍데 다메라 미비실라 손제 토병도 아니 졸람 바세 차고레스 졸람 또바 토고레세 나 졸람 바디 아니 다메 제주 냠바샤네 다메 비 돼 무슨도 또이도 다음에 무슨도 또이도 통람세 토고래제 통람 토고래제 어디 가서 두스티네 쉬버와 맞아.
Thus far in the text, we've been looking at the paths of training for a practitioner of the Tibetan lineage, whether a hero or solitary realizer. We haven't started to look at the paths that are uncommon or the training that's uncommon to a bodhisattva. So someone of the Tibetan lineage has given rise to is striving to achieve their own individual liberation from the sufferings of samsara. So to generate such an outlook, they will have meditated extensively on the sufferings of samsara, given rise to a determination to gain freedom from the sufferings of samsara, or liberation from suffering. And they will meditate on this again and again to the point where it arises within them in an uncontrived manner. In this way they generate uncontrived definite emergence, and that is the entry point for both a hero or solitary realizer into the path of accumulation. On the path of accumulation, they focus on accumulation of merit, hearing, reflecting, and meditating, as well as reflecting on selflessness. When they reflect and they do this accumulation of merit throughout the path of accumulation, and when through the combination of accumulation of merit and their successful reflection on emptiness, they attain an inferential realization of emptiness or selflessness with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, their consciousness now has crossed into the boundary point into the path of preparation. On the path of preparation, they continue to cultivate their realization of emptiness, and which is now a union of calm abiding, which is realized with the union of calm abiding meditative insight, but by means of, or via, a meaning generality. As they develop this realization, they will reach the point where emptiness is no longer realized by means of a meaning generality, but is seen directly. And at that point, the practitioner has attained a path in the continuum, which is the path of seeing.
아니네 자당한 저기 다 지라마와당 되대바 그런 저기 다 두신의 공부시당에 가르려나 지나다 솔람이 내가서 나 소사야디 단 년뒤 저주미지부 토바이나 토야려야 솔람이네서 소사야디 묘달의 세숨 사고래제 세숨 치대르제 개와치마 세숨 이래려 sönem이 소사고래스 다양 가시기한 세숨 세실라서 봐사와 세숨의 마와사와 용으리 내가 뉴쇼 세숨 사고래시 다 세숨 sönem이 솔람이 내가서 수신의 sönem 사 차위제라 안에 절람이야 동반이라 다음에 봐라 냠바샤네 되네 냠바샤네 찍려야 안에 제도블샤 모아제 절람바 냠바샤네 저때 된다가라나 안에 자주미리부 도주고래서 자주미리부 도고래서 년도 자주미리부 도고래제 나데네 라자이나 안에 솔람이 내가서 소사야 될라 가와 개소사 그래지 가와 개소는 sönem이 소사 되네 가와 gel에 하바 사 용르와 갈라 자와 gel에 하바 소사 그거를 근데 용쇼라 가와 개소는 소사 그래서 되네 에미디 한 소사 세베젤라 졸람 톱 졸람이 돈 졸람이 된데래 동반이라 냠바샤네 되는 냠샤 튠질이야 안에 라자다시면 되고 톱투구리 해서지 당한저 단 지체라마와던 되레베기 공부시다 두신 사람 유죄상이 심바디 두신이 시 레서지 가서 디시로
We've been looking thus far at the practitioners who have a motivation of the Theravada, in other words, to achieve their own individual liberation. What was also mentioned last night is practitioners who have the motivation of a Theravadan, as well as who hold a tenet of the Theravada, namely the Vaibhashika or Sautrantika. Their presentation is a little different in that they say that taking these two types of Theravada practitioners, a hero and solitary realizer, both of them on the path of accumulation need to primarily focus on the accumulation of merit through hearing and reflecting, as well as meditating on selflessness. So that has been the same. But Now, the Vaibhashika and Sarchantika will state that a practitioner of the hearer type, over a period of time expanding at least 3 lifetimes, but it could be several lifetimes longer, depending on the practitioner's skill, they will accumulate merit and so forth on the path of accumulation. And then they will, whilst they're accumulating merit and meditating on selflessness, after at least 3 lifetimes, but it may well be a few more, they will realize emptiness inferentially by means of a meaning generality with a union of calm, abiding, and meditative insight, and enter into the path of preparation. And and having attained the path of preparation, in that same meditation session, that same meditative equipoise, they will progress through all the paths from preparation to the path of seeing, meditation, and no more training of a foe destroyer, an arhat, and achieve in that single session the state of an arhat. So that's how the Vaibhashika and Sarchantika tenets present the path of a hearer. The solitary realizer is presented by those 2 tenets in a similar way, same entry point to achieve the path of accumulation, and the same focus on the path of accumulation. The difference is the duration of time required on the path of accumulation to accumulate the merit required to achieve the goal of a solitary realizer, arhat. So the solitary realizer practitioner who's on the path of accumulation will take at least 100 eons to achieve the merit that needs to be accumulated. Whereas the hearer practitioner will take only 3 or a few more lifetimes to achieve the amount of merit that is required. So this is, according to the Vaibhashika and Sarchantika, a key distinction between these 2 practitioners, in that to achieve their goal of a foe destroyer, an arhat, they need to accumulate vastly differing amounts of merit. Hence, their duration of the path of accumulation is vastly different. But from then for the solitary realizer, their entry point to the path of preparation is the same, the inferential realization of emptiness or selflessness by means of a meaning generality with the union, calm, abiding, and meditative insight. So that's the same as all the presentations. But also, as with a hearer, according to the Vaibhashika and Sarchantika, a solitary realizer too, in a single session, will progress from the path of preparation through to the path of seeing, path of meditation, and achieve the path of no more training of a solitary realizer, arhat, all again in the same meditative equipoise.
Tendel Tachumi Tova, that is Jolambi, Lutindi, Leda, Numo, Pumbo, Dare, the Rua, Tisadineza, that Tachuma Tomne, and the Mashi Bardo, Goma Mazo, Parag, Pumbodi, Dudi, Pumbores, or Dudi, or the Manzana, Dudi, Nadine, the Numo Bachazan Pansavare, Numo Bachazan Pansavare, Tachumi Topsare, in other Dudi, Di Ludi, Kiwangami, Ligi, Punji, Pumboza, Dudi, Pumbo, and it is. In a Koa Mares or the Koa Mares, Dudini Humpores. That dinner and the nigger judging by the that combo chick combo that so as a shares of my combo of a yangle de Barua, Yangle de that Pumbo de Pa, Yagi, that do you Pumbo de Pa Dorshene, that Yaki Lendu, Dini, Luigi, Yigirashi, Lunasich, Javali, Lingoreset. That Casuri Javalins, Mare, Jerama, Dirty Baladu. Dal Hamen Yangle Desava and the Pungo Maresoda. Tisan go Jajumba, Giority Mado, Pumbos Yoma, Lamen Desava, Daddy. The court Numoba, Bacha, the Java Bansavares, Bansavares, the Sangi, Gun Chazan Bawa, when you can Bawa Jiba, Sangi Numo Bacha, the Java Bande, that Jajumba Hame Jajumba said, Numo Bacha, the Java Bansavares, Sangi, the Quinilla. Panja Panya like Cavalry Marechide. Also, the Jerama 30 become what she had Sivorda. 이렇게 풍부 균체로 그러면 저좀바 여러와 저좀바도 여러와 가사 균치가 말해서 그래. 진짜 나 저좀에는 라면 양대 봐서 자요 말 매번 자서나. 변보다 릭바세 우리 풍보다 셰베게 릭다 디균체로 그래서 변보다 릭바디게 균체이래서 가사 다 세리 균체마 가사의 균체가 말해서 진짜 하면ኛ한테 봐서 가사 요래서 그래 그런 점이 네 제가 뭐도 딩이 거기 시고로 봐
Moreover, looking at the presentation now solely of the Theravada tenets, the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, they state that the practitioner on the path of accumulation has ordinary contaminated aggregates, like we do, and therefore, when they realize the path of preparation, they have these ordinary aggregates, and it's in the same session that they progress to the attainment of the state of a foe destroyer, an arhat. So therefore, in this meditation session, this final session, where they're progressing through the paths of preparation, seeing meditation, and attaining the path of no more training of an arhat, they still have suffering aggregates, suffering aggregates. When they achieve the state of an arhat, when their afflictions together with their seeds have been completely abandoned, they still have suffering aggregates, but they are no longer in samsara, no longer bound in samsara. They've achieved liberation, they've achieved freedom from samsara, but they still have aggregates which are suffering aggregates. Then, and again, just to emphasize, this is the presentation of the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika tenets. When the arhat dies, or literally, it's the honorific term that is translated. It passes into nirvana. So this you'll have come across in books, but it means when they die, their continuum of their aggregates cease. The continuum of the aggregates cease. However, it's not that the person ceases. There is still a person who has attained nirvana, but the continuum of the aggregates, this ceases. And moreover, according to the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika tenets, what the arhat has abandoned, both types of arhat, hero and solitary realizer, is their afflictions together with their seeds. That rare being that becomes a Buddha, again according to these tenets, has also only abandoned the afflictions together with their seeds. So therefore, in terms of what has been abandoned, there is no difference between the three types of practitioner, namely the hira, the solitary realizer, and then the Buddha, which went on to be a bodhisattva, which went on to become a Buddha. There's no difference here between what has been abandoned.
라면냐데바 디기 뇽모 바샤데 제바 빵바레 상기에 뇽모 바샤데 제 빵바레 개발요 말해지래 나 개발 매나 안에 다 가르치네 간스 빵바레 람나 다 빵당라 개발요래라래 상기에 뇽모 바샤데 제 빵바데 님보 람곰시 님보 덴제 바샤데 제 빵바레스 상기에 뇽모 바샤데 제 빵바데 님보 람곰지 님비 똑지 빵바레스 님보 검진의 방바레스 대신하준 뇽모발 님보때 동반이 또 다음에 또 새로 공부할 때네 맨날 번거래 해제래 다음에 냐데바디게 뇽모 바샤브체 방바 바체 방바디 님보 공부도 게 방바 말레스 그래서 그런 뇽모 바샤 샤세기 띠님에 봐 차송레스 띠 칼라샤사 뇌리메나 칼라로 수요 말와 디나신 류기 류다 수다 뱀비게 뱀보다 셰비리디 균체바르와 균체바선 뇽모 바샤 자서요마 되서요 말에 메로와 하고서 디네자 딘 메바인자 뇽모 바샤데 메바 차송레 마도 님보 검제 뇽모 바샤데 님보 검제 메바 수요 말에스 아니 가르스 메바 차바레라네 뇽모 바샤 되서기 니요마 딘요 말에스 그래서 뱀보다 리바 균체사로 와서 제산 디인자 바샤데 자서요 말지 대대 년도다란 기시오 저좀 봐대 바차를 그 사번 말에 그 사번다 바차 기지만 사번 럽션의 디로 바차의 셰바 녀모 발은 셰비 오 주바데 녀모 바기시로 바다 다 바차 알아야도 한 저기 텔에 가소레 사번 시나다 그거저기 녀모제 많이 비티바스 민다그래 제자데 녀모제 많이 비티바스를 시고래 제자 녀모 바차 데니기 녀모제 많이 비티바되게 빠야 되가서네 가실에 电的下色电灭吧的，电灭吧恰上上的帮人嘛的，年不公平都去帮嘛的，就像帮他的来开玩笑的些的，生意帮着的，年不公平都去帮吧的，但工作帮着的，年不公平都去帮嘛的，电落吧，电灭吧恰上，灭吧恰上嘛的，是了。生意让牛毛吧的帮吧的。 年不公节，大面包都被写到公巴来点的帮法来着，年不点起帮法来是。每个他们家的把这个，牛毛就买一笔直播帮法的，牛毛就买一笔直播些帮法的，年不公苗嘛，对了，年不点起，大面包都公被帮法买来些。可是呢，点可能面包吃完，咱可面包吃送来些，帮送来些，这是个嘞。
Remaining within the presentation of the Vibhasika and Sarjantika, when a practitioner achieves the state of an arhat, whether that's a hira arhat, a solitary realizer arhat, or a Buddha arhat, when they then die, they attain nirvana, in particular nirvana without remainder. Prior to death, but having attained the state of arhatship, they had achieved nirvana, but nirvana with remainder. When they die, they achieve the state of nirvana without remainder. So therefore, these three types of practitioner achieve the same final goal. In that they all achieve the state of nirvana without remainder. What differs for them is their method by which they achieved this state. The bodhisattva who goes on to become a Buddha, they through relying on the antidote to the afflictions and their seeds, namely the wisdom directly realizing selflessness, they achieve their goal, Buddhahood or Nirvana, and eventually Nirvana with remainder, then Nirvana without remainder. The other two types of practitioners, the hero and solitary realizer, who's striving just to achieve individual liberation, or rather, they're striving to achieve individual liberation just for themselves. Their method is different from that of the Buddha. They achieve their state of nirvana not through the seeds, the afflictions and their seeds being completely eradicated through the cultivation of the antidote, but actually through the container or the vessel that would contain the afflictions and their seeds, that being eradicated. So when the seeds have been, the vessel that contains the seeds is eradicated, the seeds cannot ripen. Therefore, the practitioner is liberated from suffering because the seeds can no longer ripen because their container, their vessel, has been abandoned. So that is a different approach from that of the bodhisattva who goes on to become a Buddha, who, through developing the antidote of the wisdom realizing selflessness, eradicates the seeds of the afflictions. So therefore, between these two groups, those striving for individual liberation and that the practitioners striving for Buddhahood, the method that they employ, that differs.
지난단 데니기 라면년데 바디 아니 상이 제반하지 셴된 개침부지 두 말에서 지사디 고 셴된 제매지기 개와 요래서
In this presentation of the Bhavashika Salchantika, there are some differences, but there are a lot of similarities between the two types of arhats who achieve individual liberation and the Buddha. But there are, of course, differences, but the primary difference is the amount of merit that each type of practitioner achieves, and thereby, through this amount of merit achieved, the benefit that can be brought to others. The Buddha achieves a vast store of merit, and therefore, from the Buddha's attainment, incomparable benefit to others is achieved. So that is, one can say, a primary difference between the attainment of a goal of becoming a Buddha as opposed to the attainment of the goal of either type of individual liberation.
Nyama lenyu onge pangbi pungbo lama de yode rese, jizang kola lama de jeba rese. Dadi gongbo zo yongdo, dadi meba cha son rwa, dine lama meba de, lama nyade, da yune nyama lenyu onge pangbi pungbo se, de ganya la yo ma rese. Jizang benpo yo gyuncheba, riba yo gyuncheba rele. Da gansa gyunchegi ma rele gore, gansa gyunchegi o ma re, gongbo zo yongdo pungbo gyunchegi o re, riba gyunchegi o re, ina gansa gyunchegi o ma rese re. 다 라메 냥데 세디 아니 간사도 요르베 랍나 요 말해라 거래 간사 균치에 말해 간사 요르베스는 요 말해서 그런 저게 간사 요르베스는 요 말해지래 라메 냥데 톱세에 간사 자좀 봐서 간사도 요르베스는 요 말해라 거래 내가 저 통해야 돼요 간사 요는 수요거로 와 제가 수메 봐서 간사 요 말로 와 간사 요는 셰바 요거로 와 수요거로 와 제사 셰바 메바 균체 사러 풍부 균체 사러 와 제사 강사 샤서라고 말데 강사 요르베스네 강사 요 말해라고 그래 다 하면 냐데들 가려 요르스네 요모바 빵비게 빵바 인코나 요르스 인 곡된 인라는 곡된라고 그래 인코나 마도요 말해서 제사 하면 냐데 토요도 아니 요모바 빵비게 곡된 지부를 마도 셴 가요 말해서 그러다 인코나래서 그래 바이드 야예 잉아사 잉레 농사지 시고로 와도 잉세되네
Just to talk a little further about these two types of nirvana. The nirvana that is initially achieved is the nirvana with remainder. And then upon death, or when entering into nirvana, or into parinirvana, then the nirvana that is attained is the nirvana without remainder. So what does this term remainder mean? So in this meditation session, this meditative equipoise, where the practitioner initially achieves the path of preparation and continues to the path of no more training of the fifth path of their respective lineage, hero, solitary realizer, or bodhisattva, they achieve the state of their respective arhat, but they still have these aggregates which have been attained under the power of afflictions, or through the power of afflictions. Therefore, they have the remainder, so they've achieved the nirvana with remainder, and this with remainder refers to, whilst they've achieved nirvana, so they're liberated, they have a remainder from the suffering realms of samsara, the aggregates which have been achieved through or by means of the afflictions. That's their remainder, but they are liberated. When death comes, then the continuum of those aggregates cease, and therefore they now achieve nirvana without remainder, because that remainder of contaminated aggregates attained through the afflictions, that continuum has ceased or been severed. So now they attain a state of nirvana without remainder. And again, this is for, according to Vaibhashika and Sarjantika, for all three types of lineage or practitioner: Hira, solitary realizer, bodhisattva. Now, with the ceasing of, or the severing of the continuum of the aggregates, that's one part, that has ceased, but the person doesn't cease. So this sounds a little contradictory, because if there is a person, surely there should be form, a body, surely there should be consciousness. But if the aggregates have ceased, there's no body, there's no consciousness. But the person, there is a person, but no continuation of the aggregates. So what this means is, whilst the aggregates have ceased, what remains, or what there is rather, let's not use remains, what there is a true cessation of nirvana without remainder. This is what there is. And this is then the illustration of the person. So Kenneth explained a particular word by saying it means true cessation. The actual word is, in Sanskrit, is dhatu. And then in English, this is translated as sphere or element. Sphere or element. So not so clear, but what remains, or what is the illustration of the arhat of any type, is the sphere of nirvana without remainder, or the true cessation of nirvana without remainder, or the dhatu of nirvana without remainder.
Sangye yorbe lame ba yorwa da lame topsane de sangye yorbe senda sangye yo marwa sangye yo mare so sangye wa yo mar nyomo kaso nyo tibati gelia ani je so ka so re nyomo jine nyomo ma je mai bi tiba ni ga pa sa ro tang ju ge kon ju tiba she de la nyomo je mai bi tiba se wo sangye ko ma thoya al bar ju ji tiba de la nyomo je mai bi tiba la ro wa je sa din yi ga me ba cha zna da ko sangye yo mare Gansa hora mero wada, jisa sangye yo mare so lame topsane de sangye yo mare se. Gansa yo mare la imba, gansa yunche ba che yo mare es. Gansa yo rebe sine gansa yo mare es. Gansa yo ne pungbo yo go sheba yo go res. Inkona yo re jere. ingse de gokten jigbu ma do yo mare se lame de lo gokten jigbu ma do yo mare se ingse de nyomo ba pam jiba da ji pam be pam bo gokten si gore gokten jigbu ma do gansa yor be se ne gansa yo mare je i me la me a yo ne je 풍부 윤체 바 리버 윤치 거레스 gansa 윤치 거를 be se ne gansa 윤치 말해 라래 간사의 균치고 말했어. 그 함에 하제바디 바 시르디 풍부 균치고 리버 균치고 알아제래. 나는 간사 균치고로서 간사의 균치고 말해라 그래. 간사 균치고 말해제. 나는 간사 균마셔바나 되네 아니 맨일 함에 냐데 톱서에 간사 세지 여러베스나 디요 말해라. 간사도 요 말해서 그래. 갈다 린데 khozi legorde dinga zo gada minki shio mar nga zo gada mai ba so tu ya mar ba khozi ge gongbo xia de dine killing gore si shigiro ma do medi gada mai ba shigo ma da mar no ma khozi ge nga zo samda de gada yor ba da jizadi khozi ge gongbo xia da dine shigore se killing na di se khozi tarup de se tarup de che ge gore da.
So I was just trying to get clarity because I was hearing a contradiction from what was said earlier. And Genna said yes to those of the higher schools. This view of theirs is contradictory. So now just before I say what Genna says, if you hear a contradiction, that is only because we ascribe to another school. But according to the Vaibhashika and Sarjantika, what is about to be said is not contradictory. Okay, that's the background. Now what Geshe just said. So the bodhisattva who attains Buddhahood, they do so through abandoning the afflictions together with the seeds and imprints, and they achieve Buddhahood. And with the achievement then of nirvana without remainder, the continuum of the aggregates, this ceases. But, as we heard, the person continues. And the illustration of the person is this dhatu, or true cessation, of nirvana without remainder. So that's all what has been said. But they will also now say, and there is no Buddha. So there's this continuum of a person, but there is not a Buddha. So once parinirvana has been attained, or nirvana without remainder, there is a continuum of a person, which is the dhatu, or the true cessation of nirvana without remainder, but there is no Buddha. So this is also part of the assertion of the Vaibhashika and Sautantika.
Da deshi jajumba tribu top chane nyomo pang chane da gongbo mazo chi yoro phungbo yeding je dukting phungbo yeding jajumba lhase jajumba sa yoro ba di sanyo ko ba thoya yore ji rikchi sanyo ko ba thoya yore so korong ge gongbo mazo ba che jamni je nyamlen je ni je nyamlen chanju sim nyamlen je ne de ko sanyo ko ba tho chu re je le lhaje nyang de ba de lhaje nyang de ba de la kaishe korong zo 공부 좋아하고 그래. 좋아하기. 딱 그런 소속이 내가 가시 양아직 야 아니 야 산조고 뭐 토야 되니 좀 버지는데 잠니 주고 미하다. 이거 근데 자주 셈게. 근데 산조고 뭐 토야 여러분서 요래서 제가 하제냐한테 자좀 받들라. 근데 디 산조고 뭐토 산조고 뭐 전에 좋아요. 그래서 토야 요래서. 타와스나 학제 냥데 저좀 버저와 저좀에 지고 톱지 공부 마소에 빠라데 학제에서 풍부 예되겐 동에 풍부 하마 예되겐 가서 저좀 버저와 다 저좀 버차래 다 데니기 가서 데라 카시 잠니지 검제 장주 셈고 산조고만 톱조가 요래제래 카시 안 공부 소제 하면냐데 차두고 그래제 언데 데려야 야줘야다 타면야 줘야 산삼라서 디 이용그래제 마종와 제 잠니 조금 공부했나 니 잠니 조금 장주 셈냐면 제반에 산예서 줘요 그래서 나 디마조마 제 공부 줘봐나 되네 네 가서래 매니 하면야 돼서 톱주고 그래서 제사디 톱주고 그래 된자 산조고마 더요 말해야지.
Furthermore, again, staying with the presentation of Vaibhashika and Sautantika, when a practitioner who's striving for their own individual liberation achieves it, and they become an arhat, of the hero or solitary realizer type, but they're still alive, so they've achieved nirvana, but this is the nirvana with remainder. At this point, they're alive, they have their aggregates, which were attained by means of the afflictions, and but they are liberated from samsara. So at this point, they can engage in beneficial activities for others, and they have a choice. They can do that and then die and achieve nirvana without remainder, and thereby they will have achieved the nirvana without remainder of a hero or solitary realizer. So that's one option, one path, one choice they can pursue. The second would be when they achieve their individual liberation, their nirvana with remainder, in what remains of that life, they can focus on developing love and compassion, bodhicitta, and striving for and even attaining Buddhahood. And therefore, in what remains of their life, whilst they have achieved nirvana with remainder, and before they die and attain nirvana without remainder, they can strive to develop love, compassion, bodhicitta, and Buddhahood. And then, when they die, they will achieve nirvana without remainder of a Buddha.
Dini ke laze nyande dachumi tibu topje, jam niji gom janshu sem gom ron sanje di tuhan yorwa da. De sanje goma madu badu hiya yo marda. Hiya ma, di shini lame ba charu go. Jeza di, tadi sanje goma madu badu hiya yo marda jere. Tadi di go dure.
And that practitioner who's achieved the individual liberation and is now an arhat and has attained nirvana with remainder and has determined to become a Buddha, this duration of time that they will remain alive or continue to live without dying can be extensive. Or to put this more clearly, having made the determination to become a bodhisattva and thereby a Buddha, they will not die. They will remain in this life, having achieved the nirvana with remainder, continuing until Buddhahood is achieved. So this final life could be extensive.
Dine nanshin da ko janshu sembe ge nyamlen chene jansum da janshu sembe sanjo ko bon thoye de le janshu sembe jolam ne ya an cho sai de cholam ne so cho sa dine jolam ya an ji ge nyambar sha ne nyamja thunji le ya sanjo ko bon thop tu ko ba da dine nanshin sanjo ko bon thop de sanjo ko bon da bo thop sanjo ku di ne nga ju nanshin ji yo re so le ka sen mu tuk tin yi phum por re se jara ma wa gi di ke ling go re jiza dire jiza ta sanje nyomo ba chaza ba cha da nyomo nyemo cha da nyomo che mai mi ba chaza ba cha da sanje ko ba top cha res jiza phumbo di da nga zu na ji phumbo res ya ji du tin gi la mi phumbo res da sanje to sanje ko mo zo sa na dine de ka so sang ko de yang la me nya le de ba na ji la nyang le de ba de so de ande ji ba de da ko su bu de me ba cha so re ni be ji mani la me nya de ra la ge na me na ma do de nyang le de ba re se de da din ne nga zo ka sa sang ye se de yang ji ya ge je ye me ba de da de ba sha ge de ba ko mo so se ne ya ge je ye me ba se so din na ji ko ya ge je ye me ba re se wo da
So to re-summarize some of the key aspects of what has been presented here, according to the Vaibhashika and the Sauchantika, that a practitioner achieves a path of accumulation depending on their lineage, what type of practitioner they are. They will accumulate varying stores of merit, as well through hearing, reflecting, and meditating, as well as developing their realization of emptiness. And when they gain an inferential realization of emptiness with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, will achieve the path of preparation. Then, in that same meditative equipoise, the practitioner will progress from the path of preparation to the path of seeing, path of meditation, the path of no more training of their respective lineage. So if the practitioner is a hero, they will achieve the path of no more training of a hero. If they're a solitary realizer, they'll achieve the path of no more training of a solitary realizer. And if they are a bodhisattva, they'll achieve the path of no more training of a bodhisattva, all within that single session. And they will then have achieved the state of nirvana, but at the nirvana with remainder. And this means that they have the remainder of their aggregates, which have been achieved through the afflictions. And they will have, therefore, nirvana with remainder for whatever remains of their life. And when death comes, they will pass from this life and achieve now nirvana without remainder, with a continuum of their aggregates ceasing or severing. But, as we heard, there will still be a continuum of a person, which will be the dhatu, or true cessation, of nirvana without remainder. Whilst that is the case, the practitioner who has, for example, achieved Buddhahood will not be able to reappear in the world, will not be able to manifest again in the world. So therefore, a Buddha, such as Buddha Shakyamuni, cannot reappear in our world. So again, this is all according to the presentation of the Vaibhashika and Sauchantika.
Adi nganzuki jaramawada dede bakoran zuki da duschine darupre. Jisanda sangye yi kuzuti da jaramawelana sangye marela wara kuzuti. Kuzuti sangye yi kuzu jorwa dukdere sangye marela wara. Jaramawe dukdere sangye marela wara. 다 도데 벨라도 디상예 레라 거다 이나 두데 말 상예 레서 그런 저기 다 캐바디지 다디 다 제라마도 도데 벨 공부 시나로시 다 두브르 디네제 그 상예 레라 거래 대 봉봉가나 그 기시가 자 상유 구수 그러고 구수디다.
Thus far, the view that's been presented has primarily been that of the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, and there's similarities which are great have been presented, but there are some differences. So, for example, the body of a Buddha, according to the Vaibhashika, is still a true suffering, and therefore is not a Buddha, the body of the Buddha. Whereas for the Sautrantika, they would say the body of the Buddha is the Buddha, it is not a true suffering.
두게 말해서 건조기다 수리데 이내 변보 말해서 가사 두게 말해라 다 제라마고 두게래라고 되니데 캐바디 마도샤면
So both Vaibhashika and Sautrantika would agree that the body of a Buddha is matter, but they would disagree as to whether it is a true suffering or not. What the Vaibhashika is saying, the body of the Buddha is a true suffering, and the Sautrantika say, no, it is not a true suffering, but it is matter. So this is an area of disagreements between these two schools, of course, which were both originally taught by the Buddha. So this is an area of disagreement, but largely their presentation is very similar.
당아주 가상 제데 다디네 아주 우마바 셈잠바다 우마바다 다디네게 다 지금 우마 텐주바다 란주바 거기시야도 다나 당보 녜슌 삼바 쩨마미바 장제 콜비 둥알라 삼 괜다 데네 녜슌 검제 녜슌 삼바 쩨마미바게도 초람세도 데네 초람다 데네게 초람다 졸람이네서 초사 데네 내 졸람 다 통람 녀모바 군다 빠야래야 안 똑바르고 제거를 니버를 레어도 데네 동반이라 졸람이 내가서 동반이라 제춘냠바 샤베게 안팅에 제시네다 아니 델라실라송도 주주고래서 다 데니기 초람 챔비에 내가서 동반이라 미베실라송도 주고래서 지자다 동반이라 미베실라송도 토면도 졸람 토바제 나 졸람 톱네 다 동반이 용숨도 또여도 통람 토바래서 가상한테 디바도 셰살 통람 토바래서 다당아주 데셈자바도 우마베기 시고로와 다 제라마 더디바디 대시 셰살다 당아주 디시고로다
So that's the presentation of the two lower tenets of Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. Now to look at the higher tenets of Chittamatra and the two Madhyamakas. And we'll focus primarily on that of the Madhyamaka. So for them, there will be some similarity and some differences between the views of the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. So let's start then looking at the view of the higher tenets. They would state that for a practitioner striving for individual liberation, the entry point to the path of accumulation is the generation of uncontrived definite emergence. So that is the same as with the lower tenets, the generation of uncontrived definite emergence. Then over the path of accumulation, merit is accumulated, the hearing, reflecting, and meditating. A lot of emphasis is placed on meditating on emptiness or selflessness. And the practitioner progresses through the three levels of the path of accumulation, the small, middling, and great. And when they come to what turns out to be the final meditation on the great level of the path of accumulation, in that meditative equipoise, emptiness will finally be realized inferentially with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So this too matches what has been heard in the previous presentation. So emptiness, so what is matching is the boundary or the entry point into the path of preparation, the second path, which is realizing emptiness by means of a meaning generality with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. And the path of preparation is attained. Here the practitioner will continue accumulating merit and meditating on emptiness, progressing through the 4 levels of the path of preparation. And when their realization on emptiness has been developed such and powered by the accumulation of merit, that in the final meditation, the final meditative equipoise of the path of preparation, emptiness is realized, but now not by means of a meaning generality, but directly, the path of seeing is attained.
나디네 통람 가상 통람 바도 시에사마 통람 통산에 되네 나손을 깨와요 말해야지 나손을 깨와요 말해야지 다네 통람 톱산에다 대소 통람 톱이 띵들 졸람이 띵 냠자 텐질이야 자주미티고 도구리에 숨고 말와다 그래서네다 대시 제라모 더데바시도 졸람라 냠버 샤네 텐질이야 자주미티고 도구라와 다디 건조기디 켈링고 말와 that these are that 통람 톱선의 코와를 깨와래마 요 말에 대인양 통람 톱산에야 안에 년되다랑 얘들이 안에 가서 오래 되봐 하다 밀을 깨와래마 요래서지 가상아도 디고를 직수 살이다. 통람 톱산에 나송을 깨와요 말해지. 다 코와를 깨와요를 되바다 하다 깨와요를 레니 온 코와 하다 깨와요 되바를 깨 밀리 깨와요를 진짜 코와를 깨와래 봐 요래 있네 나손을 깨와래 봐도 요 말에 해서
The similarities between the 2 different presentations will be the entry points to the varying paths. But a key difference thus far, and there are many, but a key difference is that with the attainment, according to the higher schools, so not Vaibhashika and Salchansika, with the attainment of the path of preparation, one doesn't progress to even the very next path, the path of seeing, in that same meditative equipoise, let alone beyond that. So you remember the lower tenets assert that with the attainment of the path of preparation, in that meditative equipoise, the practitioner will progress and attain the path of no more training of their respective lineage. So the other tenets, Chittamatra and Madhyamaka, do not assert this. Path of preparation is achieved and progresses through these the 4 varying levels over an extensive period of time, the 4 levels of the path of preparation, and then when one gains that direct realization of emptiness, the path of seeing is achieved. So this is what we've had in our text and what was also presented last night. And when the path of seeing is attained, rebirth in the lower realms has been closed, or the possibility to rebirth in the lower realms has been closed, but rebirth will still be taken as a human or God. With the attainment of the path of seeing, the practitioner has not attained liberation from samsara. What they have achieved is liberation from the possibility of rebirth in the lower realms, but rebirth will still be taken in samsara, but only as a human or God.
통람이 제일이야. 나 저기 가르바요. 세네. 다 녀모바 행기디게 방고와 군다디게 통람이 내가서 방사를 봐. 다 행기 방고래. 다 행기 방도 갑래. 다 행기를이야. 곧 뉴버디 채완자 내려야 아니 곧 림발 마손에 파 구치고래. 지게 림버 구치네 되는 봐. 당보 락바락바디 빠데는 마들 지다. 가상한지 될바 디조와 통진 공부를 제배 아니 가서 림예 차라 림예 반이 방벽 고된 토비고 고추라도 봐 가상 고추라라 제가 고된 토바 고추바래서 되면이 통람 군다 방벽 고된 토바래 단 고추바 되네야 통람도 고된 토고 고추바서 고된 당보 토바래래 거와 나 되네야 고된 망보 토비유비기 기시거로 봐 제산다 가로 열서는 묘모보 꼴 구체도 다 베네 당보 꼴군에 당보의 방법 고된 이바의 방법 고된 숨바의 방법 고 시방아바 두바데 고된된 마두시는 고된 망고 사용으로 봐 제사다 되네기 뇨모보 꼴구체제 하는 고구 안도시네 용고래.
Last night we got as far as the fourth bullet point. So I'll just read it all. Again, I read just half, but I'll read it all. This then is the direct antidote to true origins, such as the acquired afflicted mind of true grasping, and also begins the attainment of true cessations, the complete abandonment of true sufferings, such as rebirth in the lower realms. So this is referring then to the moment where where the moment that the path of seeing is achieved. So the path of seeing is achieved, and the direct antidote to the true origins, such as the acquired afflictive minds of true grasping, and is now achieved. So the first thing that is abandoned, and this was all mentioned last night, are the acquired afflictions together with their seeds. And then as the text continues, and also begins the attainment of true cessations, the complete abandonment of true sufferings. So this then implies that there is more than one true cessation, and therefore, and this is because there is more than one level of true sufferings. So the path is presented as there being 9 levels or stages of abandonment of true sufferings and their respective true cessations. And these 9 refer. So first, initially, there's the attainment of the path of seeing and the abandonment of the acquired afflictions and their seeds. When that is done, only the acquired afflictions have been abandoned. The innate afflictions are now what needs to be abandoned. So this it remains. After the acquired afflictions are abandoned, the innate afflictions need to be abandoned. And these are stronger, deeper seated, perhaps, we can say. They're deeper seated, and therefore they take longer to abandon, and they are abandoned in successive levels of subtlety. And this is these 9 levels or stages of abandonment, and each level is attained with its respective true cessation. So therefore, again in the text, and also in the middle of the same bullet point, and also begins the attainment of true cessations. So there are these many levels of true cessation, which one attains as one progresses from having achieved now the path of seeing.
Demba Tonsing Gombi Gomlamgi Sirda Tonlam Topsawa Dene and Gaso Gomlam Gomgurua, Chisna Demba Tonsin Sid Demba Yonson Tomba Yonson to Saviki Jela Ton Simba Land Tonsimba Tonyons to Simba Jela se Tonlam Tosavi Jela Sigor Jela Gombe Lamgi said that Gomlam Gomche Nyomobal Hangi Gomlam Gomchi Pangurs Gombe Lamgi Hangi Nyomong Chirimne Sida Hangi Nyomodela Chemboda Chungwada Jingda Chungus Jine Dambo Chewa the Band and the Jingde the Chung the Baja Dusine Chirimne Sabona Jeba Dendo Bangbi Gotin Nam Rimji top said that Rimbasin Toguri Essage. Rimji top said Dibardina.
Now coming to the new sentence in the text, so the next bullet point. So on page 25, the second from bottom bullet point. Having seen the truth through familiarity with the path of meditation, the coarser innate afflictive minds, together with their seeds, are abandoned entirely through the attainment of a series of true cessations. Having seen the truth, this refers to having seen reality, having attained the path of seeing. So this has been achieved, familiarity with the path of meditation. Now, having progressed from the path of seeing to the path of meditation, and having abandoned the acquired afflictive minds together with their seeds, the practitioner now begins the process of abandoning the various levels or degrees of subtlety of the innate afflictions together with their seeds. So this, here, so we have the coarser innate minds. So here this word kosa refers to the varying levels of subtlety, coarse down to subtle. So this is presented as innate afflictions together with their seeds of a great level, a middling level, and a small level. So this now, with attainment of the path of seeing, this process of abandoning the innate afflicted minds together with their seeds begins.
당보 rakpa rikchi dele de chawa rikchi dele chasho rikchi sumchine da chenpo ding chungu sene yawa sumro che da chenpo corona ya ani chenpyoge dele ya chenpo da chungu ding da chungu sene chenpo corona le pa yawa sumche che 당보 da chenpyoge chesho rakpa de pa di je la chenpyoge nane ani de stinga de pa dine sumba chungsho de pa du sene and dene ding dele de ding nane da rakpa chesho de pa dinane ding nane ding di pa ding nane chungsho di pa de chungu de le de da chungu corona lo ya chawa da rapa sumche de dangbo rapa de pa dine ding di pa tama chungsho di pa de ta chumbu de to ya de du sine chago ro ba che da gol ku che de dangbo chungu che rap chenbo ding chungu se gol sumche de chenbo de la ya sum ding de la ya sumche chungu de la sumche de nyomo bo gol ku cha 디고디 다 림바시노 봐야지 또 세레세 곰람게 봐야 돼. 다 녀모 봐대 녀모 봐 한게 자자데 녀모 봐 한게 되라. 마도 군다 매바로 하다. 군다 빵사로 하다 군다 사사다 올려가요 말이다.
On the path of seeing, the acquired afflictions together with their seeds have been abandoned. Now over the duration of the path of meditation, the varying levels of the innate afflictions together with their seeds are abandoned. And here, there are these 9 levels of subtlety that the innate afflictions are abandoned, divided into great, middling, and small. And here the word kosa refers to the great. So the great, middle, and small, the way we understand these is each of those 3 have their own 3 subdivisions. This is how one comes to 9 levels or stages of the innate afflictions that need to be abandoned. So first one abandons the 3 levels of the great innate afflictions, or the coarsest, then the 3 levels of the middling innate afflictions, and then the subtlest levels, or the small, of the innate afflictions are abandoned. So this is how one gets to 9. So the names of these is looking at the 3 divisions of the great. It's the great of the great, the middle of the great, and the small of the great. So that makes 3. Then the next set of 3 is the great of the middle of the middle, and the small of the middle, making another 3, so 6. And the final 3 is similar. The great of the small, the middle of the small, and the small of the small. So these then this then is the final grouping of 3, and these are making 9 in total. So these 9 levels of coarse to subtle of innate afflictions together with their seeds are abandoned over the entirety of the path of meditation, whereas the acquired afflictions together with their seeds were abandoned on the path of seeing.
nyumon de la dinigi guchi chede dang juge kamsumyora deba sume se jorba chedan debi ge nyumon de la gu ne sugi nyumon de la gu sumi nyumon gu chairo da di pangna de la ya rigni yungore de la ya ane rimgi pa chikja to chikja do nyumdo depchil pa ro ben dangbo ben nyommo bongonju wasi or debi nyommo ngonju wa de dangbo debi ngonju wa nyommo ngonju wa de pa bang and di jele ya an sugi nyommo ngonju wa de ye bang di jele ya sumi nyommo ngonju wa ji bang ji bang de rimba shin do che mar da sum sin da de sum so ye ba da dangbo nga ju ge bang na de ya ni yung go re je dangbo debi nyommo ni ko ku jo ro rimba ji rimba ji de bang 디제라 안에 수기nyom ngonjuwa dige ngonjuwa de rimba shin도 봐 rimba 구요로바다 구구 직발 되바 숨가 구구여 버리다. 그래서 데니기 림바지는 반다 수기 꼴 구디야 림바지 빠세베질라 안 수메기 녀몽 꼴 구디 림바지는 빠지 원주 왔어. 대 사번 말다 원주 와디. 녀몽 녀모들 원주 와다 사번이 여러와. 녀몽 원주 와라네 셰바 모고예네. 사번라나 데미지 원주와. 지나다 당보 녀몽 원주 와디 방고라. 원주 와디 림바지는 빠네 빠주한 체레 두시네 림기 방와세 방다 림바지 두스 방한 지용 거래. 데네 안두시네 당보디 디시 마시다.
As we know, there are three realms: form, formless, desire, form, and formless. These 9 levels of innate afflictions apply to each of these realms. So the desire realm has these 9 degrees of subtlety of innate afflictions, as does the form realm and the formless realm. There are 2 methods for abandoning these afflictions, of the manifest afflictions, where the one method is first these 9 levels. So we had the great of the great and the middling of the great and so forth. These 9 levels of innate manifest afflictions, not seeds, manifest afflictions of the desire realm are abandoned. Thereafter, the same 9 levels, but now of the form realm, are sequentially abandoned, and thereafter the same 9 levels but relating to the formless realm are sequentially developed. So this is then referring to the manifest afflictions of these 3 realms, 9 by 9 by 9, eradicated sequentially.
Dile dene pangjo mi dile pangja rimji pangwa se pangja rimji pangja de pa onjuwa de rimji pangwa pangja onjuwa de rimji pangwa de pang rimji pangwa.
So this method is called the sequential abandonment of manifest afflictions, or maybe it's better evident afflictions. Anyway, not referring to the seeds. So this form of abandonment is called sequential abandonment of manifest afflictions.
난 직자도 념도 방송한 지금 거래. 가르 념도 간데스 방고래서네 메닝한저 되비게 념몽 다데 첨보들라 고로 숨찬는 락바 당보디세. 나 수기 념몽 락바 당보디세. 수메제 감지 락바 당보디세. 디숨 념도 방고래. 디 방요도 사본나 제바 방고래. 디 숨게 사본나 제바 원주와다 사본 니가 념도 방고래. 진짜 디 놈도 방고래. 엔 디젤라 디 숨데 디네 첨부게 딩디 되비게 첨부 딩디다 수기 첨부 좀 숨메게 첨부 딩 숨디 념도 방고래. 사본나 제바. 디네 첨부게 중우디 되비 최비 중우다 수기다 숨메게 최비 중우 숨디 두신의 념도 방고래. 진짜 디 숨 념 방데 대방여도 사본나 제바 념도 방고 대 직자라고 방 직자도 방고 념도 직자라는 념도 가른 념도라는 대비 념마직 수기 념마직 수면 념마직 숨 념도 사본나 제바 념도 방고 될래 안에 방제 직자는 방 봐서 그래 아 사본나 념도 방고 대지는 사본 방고 말해.
The method then just presented is the sequential abandonment of the manifest afflictions. The second method is where they are abandoned together. So here together refers to, so we have these 9 levels of subtlety of the innate afflictions across the 3 varying realms. So the first level is the great of the great, the second is the middling of the great, and so forth. So the practitioner in the second method, where they're abandoned altogether, abandons the first of the 9 levels, the great of the great, for all 3 realms together. And then, having abandoned, and here not only do they abandon the manifest afflictions, but also the seeds. Thereafter, they will abandon the second level of the 9, the middling of the great, and they will abandon that for all 3 realms together. And this is, again, the abandonment of the manifest afflictions and their seeds. Thereafter, they'll go to the third of the 9 levels, where they'll abandon the small of the great for all 3 realms, form, desire, form, and formless, together. And that's the abandonment of the manifest afflictions together with their seeds. And etc. That's through the first 3, and they'll do so through all 9. So this is called the, how would you say? The abandonment of the afflictions together with their seeds, the sequential, not sequential, what would it be? All together, I don't know. The altogether abandonment of the afflictions together with their seeds.
대시 림기바세데 림기방다데 원주와디게 림기바지로와 대시 녀레 원주와디게 림기방도 거라세 델레 림기방은 델레야 사본나 제바 림기방한 제용고래 사본나 제바 가소래 다 대시 원주와디게 림기방도 거래세 제 림기와셰로와 다 제마 대소야 원주와 방사다 가르스라요 사본디게 방야라도요와 사든 사본디게 방에도 거님 직제도 방도 거래 야 되비게 녀모 쳔베 사번다 예니게 사번디게 제 직자지도 방도 거래 사번디 방야라 직제도 방 거래죠 디디지고로 와되네 네
Of these 2 methods, the first method, where the realms are the 9 levels of the afflictions, of the innate afflictions are abandoned, realm by realm, there only the manifest afflictions have been abandoned, not the seeds. So such a practitioner, having abandoned the manifest afflictions of the 9 levels for each realm, they will then come back and abandon the seeds. And the method for abandoning the seeds would be to do what we heard in the second method, but now just for the seeds, where the great of the great will be of the 3 realms will be abandoned together. Thereafter, the middling of the great for the 3 realms will be abandoned together. So this is the same method as the second technique, but now only for the seeds, because this practitioner employed the sequential training, abandoning the manifest afflictions.
Desa delia nyomong deji loite nyomong lengi komlamgi es ane lengi nyomong chirimne sabonna jebala da sabonna jebala de ngonjuala gorda desa dine dendu pangbege da pang sabonna pangbege goten nam rimyi topdes desa da rimyi togres da dusin goten rimba topdasie 나데네 타르스 타말야 뇽몬 충우디 사본데 제바 빵베게 타르바 토바나 제도 뇽모 사본나 타마 충우기 사본나 제바 빵도 타르바 토바레스 타르바 토바 델야 안 랑람유 제바 조디 밀로베기 멤베사 자주몽도 제바 이노스 제다 충우 빵바인자다 빵차도 안가 랑람기 자고 냠는 제대 탈침바로 받아 다 탈침바에다가 밀로바세 토바레스 밀로베 토바 제가 디토에도 될 멤버 자점바 토바이스 대당한 지금 다 멤버세 때문에 최종 충위다 자점바들라 충위들 받는 년도다 랑지게 자점바 다 남는 년도게 자점부터 도거든 안에 랑제람니 자점부터 도도 거래서
So looking at that same bullet point, the second last one on page 25, having seen the truth through familiarity with the path of meditation, the coarser innate afflicted minds together with their seeds are abandoned entirely through the attainment of a series of true cessations. So I've just presented in these previous several segments is the 2 methods by which the afflictions, together with their seeds, are abandoned entirely through the attainment of a series of true cessations. So there are those 2 techniques, either sequential or all together, but they come to the same point where these 9 levels of the afflictions, of the innate afflictions, or these 9 levels or stages of the innate afflictions, together with their seeds, are finally abandoned with the abandonment of the small of the small. So that brings us then to the final bullet point on this page. Finally, with abandonment of the subtlest level, the smaller the small, of the afflicted minds together with their seeds, so this would be the innate afflicted minds together with their seeds, liberation is attained. So this is where liberation from samsara is achieved. And it continues, now, with the completion of one's own journey, the ground of no more training of a Tibetan Arhat is achieved. That should probably be path, but anyway, ground was written. So the practitioner who's striving for their own individual liberation, so the Tibetan practitioner in terms of method, but this is now presented from the tenet of the Mahayana, they going for the goal of the Tibetan individual liberation, so either a hero or solitary realizer, they achieve their liberation from samsara with the abandonment of the subtlest level of the 9 levels of the innate afflictions together with their seeds, the smaller the small. When those have been abandoned, liberation is achieved. And they have achieved the ground of no more training of a Tibetan Arhat.
당한 저게 도시네 년대 람 녀모바디네 중후 징 라바다 바된 징바 중후 바데 시거로 와다 당한 저게 소소 안을 삼다베네 나스 뮤 콘도 서버를 시베네 잠제로 삼다네 콘도 산징 말했으면 삼다네 도시 갈가좀 따데 네 콘도데 양시 메딩에 길리길리야 제도 라바드 메바차서로 바지게 양내야도 삼다데 데네 콘도 나야데 엔닉식 되스 공부를 차베네 징도 차도로 지사 데네 마 삼다데 콘도 기네 라면 차서네 콘도도 메어 차로 지상한 주기 네 콘도를 지네 다당보가 주기 지 콘도 초부치베네 고 냠레니 잠제 공부고 삼당이 땡이 콘도를 끼엔다 된디 도초 잠제 삼당이 땡이 제베네 되스 콘도디 나야랴 되스 공부로 신용을 차야 돼 가서 세부로 와다 아니 아디네 마직 제베네 냠네 야 슈처주도 간섬질이야 콘도베 공부 차야기다 저라게 강아치 테네 콘도 말아야로 차야 되네게 주도 아주게 지 콘도라 삼다베네 지고 라바로다 징로다 중우로다 지도 마서 삼다당에 토네 냐마 지 양실래디 마마 슌다디 데 라바디 메바서바디 지바 체거로와 디나지 마지든 양시다 균이 균이 무르지마도 콘라이 메바이나 데네 징메바서 같이 차비로 안두시네 아주 삼다비네 데베네 나주기로 소수기라 되샤레 콘로레 나게레 만차살이야 지게요로 와다 갑르리아 징아게게 용거를 갑르 되샤게 용거 갑르 콘로게 용거래 지사디네 상하주기 콘두기 님보테 잠제 삼다야다 한 되샤 나나 약보 말씀에 삼다야다 데네 나게게나는 지게 약보 말씀에 두시네 삼당이 땡이 제베는 데네 삼로가제 마탄수네 다 콘로라야다 되샤게야다 and I get the Shukchun Rua, did Shukchun the Rabat does Mevazugorva, and Diroji Chagorvada.
This presentation on grounds and paths, or paths and grounds, can sound really theoretical. It's about practitioners far more advanced than ourselves. Nevertheless, a skillful practitioner will take personal meaning from this presentation. So the way that we can relate to this presentation is independence on the familiarity that we gain with the temporary antidotes to the afflictions. We will start to see a change in our mind. So let's just take initially the affliction of anger. Having recognized the grave fault of anger and given rise to a determination to arise from the suffering of anger, to no longer suffer by anger, one will strive to cultivate its antidote, that of love. So one will meditate on love repeatedly over a sustained period, having it the center of one's practice. And as one becomes ever more familiarized with love, our very coarse level of anger, this great level, will start to reduce as our mind becomes ever more habituated to love. Then we can say, comparatively to earlier, our anger now is at a middling level. taking inspiration from our spiritual development, continue to cultivate the antidote of love, continuing to see anger, for example, as our true enemy, generating, becoming ever more habituated to love. And in this way, we start to recognize that the strength of our anger, it's our habituation to it, the ease with which it arrives and remains, this becomes slight. And therefore, we can recognize our anger used to be great, quite a while ago. It was then for a long period of middling strength. Now, it's of slight strength, small strength. In this way, we can come to recognize that, for me, even when I encounter identical situations to before, anger rarely arises, very rarely arises. And the reason for that is not because I'm intentionally needing to apply an antidote to the same strength as before. Love is now ever more spontaneously, naturally arising. Therefore, how I experience the difference is that I'm going through life with the mind of love, ever more present, more easily and in a wider variety of circumstances arising. So this would be an illustration of how we can look at overcoming or weakening the afflictions through the arisal of the generation of the general antidote. And the illustration was with love, but a practitioner will also apply antidotes to pride, to jealousy, to ignorance, attachment, and so forth. And in the same way, the varying afflictions, whilst they easily arose and led to an easy afflicted response and remained in our mind for an extensive period, in other words, were of great level, through becoming ever more familiar or habituated to the varying antidotes, those afflictions weaken in strength, their frequency of arising and their duration, and becoming of middling level, and eventually, through the continued cultivation of antidotes, they become of a slight or small level. So in this way, we can take inspiration from the training of practitioners who have a path and apply it to our own lives.
Geshe Thubten Rabten Nyamlen tu sus nangore seda ngantu sabdal masona mitinde tu chen duwar tinde duwar sen ma sabdal mason di kor ma chasan shu charwada da nga ju ne lam del tine nyamlen di chen ma do tarbada temji himbo ko wa thoya me ba sa di lam di nyamlen cheben do ko wa dine za da nga dangbo gyula nga ju la cholam seda dangbo lam ge cholam ne ki wo Solam Kiavade, Gidiki Horson, Nation Samba Juma Mayin, but Kiavaina, that's Solam Kigo, said the Jinga to the Shesra. The Zatan Gule, Nation Samba Juma Membikiadi, Tangan Yana, Yando Yana, and some Tambaltine, Combalet in a Kigurua. The name Zatan Tigi, Anzuki Yamlin, she had a Karelamna, Chicken Anzuki. Chiki nga zu tongsi ki dunro de nga zu zemlen na la nyota da kanga da dine du chen de samtan da dine kane ne da chi dunga de rashi na kanga re do wa sambe ke dine ke dunga da kanga de ke tong wa cha ha go wa cha da dine ke tarbe ke kanga de le tar go do chesa da tarba de garasa nyo mo ba de da sabon na je ba pang ba de tarba de da di ma thop ne da thap min di thop go do sambe ke da tarba thop go do sambe ke Toba chicken sibe samlode tarba donya dumba seura di ju yane samtaje then chiku konuba masona chikomba ina ya nuba chercher dine ani ju jema mayimbe yumo di kituya toba chedi tanga ju geche shode di chagoro bada dine ji sosuina dine ke tarba matum tabmin tarba tokudu sembege di toba chicken sibe samlo yane cha Denige samdane da tarba tobege dondalya natin chisosuraragi denige ani chege ya chik kunjolya chebo puya da deni sosuge sunam ge geju dubya ne chik sunam saya la ba da chik 강도 또 제디 네 안주게 라렌다데 계시셔디 디차고로 당아주 냠len 제디 지난 디네 제바는 안주네 님지 당에 중에 삼바디 주마만이 버스길게 소바나 다 솔람바세 차이고로 지난 다 솔람바데 차송바이나 람길게 살아디네 디네야 야야 줘야 마도든 냠네 이름바디 야야 줘야 마도 가스네 마결 차지 책마로 지난 디네 자당 안주기 제셔디 내중에 삼보 공부해야 되다 코르비 동아들라 타고 델레튜비 직 탈바사데 마톱네 탑미노 선배게다 탈바 등이길로데 자야 되는 쪽에다 디링 가사다시 디링시에게 디기 롭센티기 가족에 라렌다고 해야 아주 차상 나라다 아주 차상데 라신 참마도 시에가데 계시 뭐 저거로 와데 야야 줘야마도 누 줘야 말했어.
What has been presented here in the text, and last night and today, and also a bit last weekend, is the stages of training for a practitioner who has the goal of the Theravada, of individual liberation. So, from your understanding of this, you'll have a mental map of that needs to be followed to achieve this goal. So the way that I encourage all of you to relate to this, in addition to what I said in the immediately preceding segment, is to understand the importance of generating a path in one's continuum and how to do so. The first of the 5 paths is the path of accumulation. The entry point to the path of accumulation is the generation of not just definite emergence that one can generate in meditation, but uncontrived definite emergence, where it spontaneously arises, without effort arises. Merely having the wish is insufficient. The wish to generate uncontrived definite emergence and generate a path, the wish is required, but that alone is insufficient. It needs to be cultivated, developed, and strengthened. And this is done through reflecting extensively on the varying sufferings in samsara, those in the lower realms, and in particular, those in the upper realms, in particular, those of humans, both what we experience and what we observe. Therefore, one focuses on reflecting on the sufferings of samsara, together with the origins of those sufferings. To the extent that the understanding of sufferings and its origins arises within oneself, to that extent, one will want to definitely emerge from the suffering realms of samsara, to no longer take uncontrolled rebirth, bound in these suffering realms. So through cultivating deeply the understanding of suffering and its origins, one will give rise to a determination to gain freedom or liberation from suffering and its causes. And this is the cultivation of the mind or definite emergence, which needs to be done continuously over a sustained period so that it arises in a way that is uncontrived. And when it arises in a manner that is uncontrived, this mind, this consciousness that is the uncontrived mind of definite emergence, that consciousness itself is a path. It's a path of accumulation. This is a meditation of great importance for all of us. No matter one's spiritual goal, one needs to generate the determination to gain freedom from suffering and its causes. So therefore, just like someone who has developed a path in their continuum, and under the influence of that path will engage in a wide variety of virtuous activities, making offerings, hearing teachings, meditating, and so forth. So too, for the aspirant of such a path, with the motivation of, in order to achieve the final goal and the preceding stages, I will engage in these varying virtuous activities. This then is how we need to proceed. And to take inspiration for the great importance of generating the path of accumulation as soon as possible is when the path of accumulation has been achieved, it will not degenerate. one's uncontrived evident emergence, that consciousness will not degenerate. It will only improve. So therefore, whilst it is difficult to achieve the initial path, once it's been achieved, one can be confident, I have generated a path in my continuum. It will not be lost. It will only develop. That, taking inspiration from that, leads to the inspiration to cultivate the causes required so as to generate a path in one's continuum.
Then you would want to give Lama the Geshe Thubten Rabten Lamni Rimba Jusut Ma Geshe. Then that is show a deshasan to origin at Anatigore.
This afternoon, we'll continue over the page with the paths of bodhisattvas. We'll conclude there for this morning. But if you have questions, then please feel free to ask. Cameron?
Superficially, the path of the hero seems a bit less hazardous in that it's much shorter. So the longer paths, even just the path of the solitude realizer, is quite long. And there seems like the risk of falling back. So does it seem, and on top of that, the hero Aha in their final life can then practice to become a Buddha. So does that seem like a more logical strategy?
Sure. According to the Vibhashika and Sautrantika tenets, the length of time to progress through the path of accumulation and attain the path of preparation varies greatly, yeah? And moreover, once the fruition of the paths of a hero and solitude realizer are achieved, the state of an arhat with nirvana with remainder, they can, at that point, having achieved freedom from samsara, now strive to become a Buddha, generate bodhicitta and strive to become a Buddha. Yeah? And then the question?
So therefore, is that a better strategy to adopt?
Going with the hero route, and when you attain arhatship, striving to become a Buddha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that better? Okay.
Koran Suna China, Yoharu, Chagurwa, Chagura, Nyandush, the Yoha Rangel. Near many Rangel goes to Sunam, Geshe, Savan, Tachum, Tivu Tobna, Nuviche, into your Resigurwada, Chikor, Benigi, Kajele, Nazudirwa, Venerable Lobsang Masone, Jike, Tiri Tumba in a Tumba Jiba, Manigi, Tumba Jiba in there. Ko Jigdi Gun Mangara Janja, Lobja Mara Jesse Tumbada, Jig Lobja Nuara Jesse Tumba Idi, Tunsave Jelia, Nubation Sultuayers, Lobja Manga and Nubache to Ayorvada. You Tumba the Jigware there. The road Chagurvada once there. That is also Damgar, so as to Cariniel Diche 2 the Sambegi, that me call Kandam Bebal Timbegi, Coronzo, Adanga Diche and Rugan Sambedaniel, Diche to Warade.
Your question makes complete sense, and it is in accordance with their presentation that the path of the hero is the quickest way to achieve the state of an arhat, and but within their presentation they make quite clear that the reason why some practitioners follow the path of a hero, others the solitary realizer, and others of the bodhisattva. So they'll present two reasons. One being, when the state of nirvana with remainder is achieved, these three differing practitioners will have achieved the same goal, nirvana with remainder, but the quality of their ability or power, probably ability is better, is vastly different because of the amount of merit on their continuum. So there's this great difference, but they will say it is the individual's choice. What guides that choice is their own disposition and inclination. So some will see quickest route makes sense to me, others will see one of the longer routes makes sense to me because of their different personality, disposition. Recognizing also that when they achieve the state of a arhat, they will have a greater or lesser ability. Just like students who graduate with an identical degree, whilst they have the same degree, their capacity, their ability to perform their role or their new job will differ in dependence on how well they studied and the skills they developed.
korongi maungpa judgment shanlaya tyo shanlaya rawa jama korong jibu rangi judgment jibu kowa top tuya jaya ta ane di rikchik chagore rangya korong zuge samma karsa korosane konzuge di samma janju senpa da nyandyo yosa de la ane chue shaya de konzu robo che rugu res sangye yosa konzu she rugu res jisa da sangye me janju senpa me duken nyandyo ki me sa saji de la ya simchen di jilu chue shaya yo maris 띵이 지긴 시비게 또 닝도 디키고래 지산 상계다 장주 선바다 근데 상계 폐에서는 공부 좋아서 상계 마중을 빨아들이야 나 상계요 말아 최시해요 말아 왔어 지산 년퇴면에 내 장주 선바 메서 서지들 띵이 시긴 시비 고 닝도 디키고래 지산 되네서 고 마음반에 상계 자주미 되고 토베이네 델이안 고 당보 소람이고서 냠는 지에서는 마음반에 그런 지 tendeyaala chunyu korangi samdaache dus komchen chachimichibu topchu kurese. Korda kanchile rangya labde nganzu nyen-tue labde mangbu chik nyamdu genzil yasi tuya dang nyamdu uro chik yue tendela debiki rik teni chik yue kenchi kansa chile nyen-tue ri tenewa lamdo. Rangya sayade rangya labde shenle ten mogo ngarang rangi chigiri saya chik tawara chik kadi rik teni chik yue tenga chik ko sunguduwa. Chesan teni san korang zuki 매바 칸나 매바 카가 돈에 남냠리 지르바 카가 두고 그러다. 텐데야라 중이. 텐데야라 중요 검진의 저쯤에 저 두고 그래제. 랑제 세고 랑제기 고 제말 고 솔람이 내가서 롭정으로 지기로 마음바다네 제라말 때 먹어지 그런 쿠심 제라면 지내게 상계다 년되다 장주 선바 메세게 사지들 파치 안 그런 거 곰잡 안도 선 자주면 되고 도야다 샹리아 최대야기 그런서 다와된 시월에서 그래.
To look further at why someone would choose which of these three paths to follow, it really comes down to their own individual disposition and inclination, because there will be some who want to go the quickest path and attain freedom, and with this, and that there are those who want to take these far longer paths of the heroes or the solitary realizer or bodhisattva. But that's not the only difference in terms of their inclination. It's said that those of the hero inclination are also of the type who train in a group under the direct guidance of the Lama with other students, training, developing, striving to attain individual liberation. The practitioner of a solitary realizer has a different approach. Whilst they will train with their teachers, train in a community, they have a particularly powerful attitude, a deep strength of mind, that they recognize that they're lamas abiding in this world, that their being Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in this world is impermanent, indefinite. There will come a time when there is no Buddha or Bodhisattva in the world. And thereby, with a motivation of compassion, they are determined that in their last life on the path of accumulation, they will take rebirth in a place where there is no Buddha or Bodhisattvas, and without having a teacher, independent on their many lifetimes of training, they will meditate on the 12 links of dependent arising alone and achieve the state of arhatship of a solitary realizer. So that in this world or environment, not necessarily the planet, but this environment where there is no Buddha or Bodhisattva, they, without a teacher, dependent on their prior training, will achieve the state of an arhat and thereafter be able to benefit others for what remains of that life. So what we're seeing here is a different personality which draws them in one of three directions. Okay?
With the hero arhat, in their final life, if they attain the level of a Buddha, is that attainment any different to the attainment of Bodhisattva who attained the level of Buddha? If they're equivalent, then isn't that a quicker answer?
So, is the attainment of a Buddhahood by means of the hero route or the Bodhisattva route, is it any different? Because it's so much quicker.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
Sangi chakra, Sangi chakra, Sangi de ni Kyabayare.
Karsa.
Niente, con Drachompa chakne, Deni Jansukitzen Kya, Deni Sange, Kongi Sange, Dan Jansusemba Momba Sangi chakra, Sangi de ni Kyabayare.
Didi Kyabayare mare. Karsane. Sanji Goma Tobala, Nyandu Digi, Tarbasam Toma, Sanji Goma Totugo Marwa. Maratua, Janjusim Yamlin Chegorwane. Jezanda, Janjusim Yamlin Joga, Janjusim be Yamlin Jeda, Nyandu Rai, Lamjedi, Gari Cabar Yorsane, Janjusim Majanil and Nyandu Lamle Shu, Jangudua, did you see Mahadua, Sanji Goma Toyala? Then Janjus. Gununga Gudua, Karasane, Korean, Janjusim Majinil and Yandu Lamlia, Romango Jangudua, and Daniel and Janjusim Yamlin Cheshavane, then Di Jangu, the Cotium de Tarugua, Chesan Sanjo Goma Toya, Dambo Yandu Lamla, Yamlin Sanjo Goma Toya down, Dambone, Sanji Janjusim Lam Lobsang Sanjo Goma Toya, Sanjo Goma Toya, Dambone Janjusim Yamlin Sanjo Goma Toya, Ta Negore, Ta Lelai, Yawangore. That you many the Yandu Lamla Shu, Dene Janjusim Yamlin Chevena, Gabrielia, Janjusim Yamlin Chevi, Gabrinia, many Kokwala Yambasha, Denegi. Duzurumbu duzu dini gigor kasi nyema gomshi gi gonge duzu composition dini tian sunam chosa yala ji ganga tigore chiza dini eza dangbo sanji gi janju simbe lamla nyamne chi shaban sanju ko bala ta nyewa chigore.
If the final goal of a practitioner is that of Buddhahood, then they have the choice of these differing paths. Of the three, the quickest is the path of the Bodhisattva. And the reason for that is, if someone has the determination, I'll become a Buddha, but I'll do so via the hero path, for example. Whilst they will, as we heard, according to these tenets, achieve the state of hero arhat within 3 to slightly more lifetimes, whilst they've then achieved the state of an arhat, they still have to generate bodhicitta, and all the merit that a bodhisattva accumulates. So this means that final life, where they are abiding with the nirvana with remainder, would be extensive, because all the merit that the bodhisattva is accumulating on the path of accumulation, they are now needing to do, having achieved their path of no more training of a hero. So they still need to accumulate that amount of merit, but they are doing it now as an arhat, as opposed to the bodhisattva who's doing it on the path of accumulation. And the reason why for the arhat to do so will take longer is because, so they have the same amount of merit to accumulate, and the reason it will take longer for the arhat is they have a strong habituation through their prior training to their own liberation, achieving my liberation for myself. So they have this strong habituation to this way of thinking, myself first. And moreover, and influenced by this habituation, they've achieved a state of peace, this true cessation of liberation. And therefore, their inclination will be to enjoy that, to rest in that, as opposed to striving to generate bodhicitta and enacting with others. So this will be an obstacle for them to do so. I think it's usually expressed that they'll bliss out and not make an effort. It's not how I'm going to express it, but that is the meaning. Because of their habituation to a particular way of thinking, my liberation first and foremost.
ane di maze ane janju sem dangbo de janju sem nyale sanjo ko wa ta nye yo be ne tine nyandu ge lam de ge nyamne de ge garjin song ba de sem be do ba sa se ro wa de janju sem be lam ji bu song shan de ge ka san yu ko ma to ba la ta nye ge do wa sem be ge ji san sam lo de yo se ge ro wa di nyandu da ran je song go de ka se ne san ji ko ma to ba le dangbo ne ko janju sem nyamlen che le be ju yo sa ma re sem be ge 뉴버 메팅에 네 투게세 되니게 삼로 뉴버 메팅은 다 코와레데 타르고도 다 코웨데 강아 두아 선배게 되네 삼로 유현지라 제사다 결혼 장주심 삼담 메시베시 결혼 코와라 타는 되네 되네 냠네진 자주모 코와 타 투그레 세지 마순 거래 제사 되니게 순네 코나 주게다 다 코와라 타고 선배 코나 삼로 여바자 샘제 탐지기 된다 등에 제 두고 말해 선배 삼로 여러와 제가 코와라 타고 선배 삼로 여바자 지난 결혼 기념례전 타바 토그레스 산지게 탑람 땡에도 니 그런 되는게 배수의 제제 타바 토용 거로 타바 토용도 거다 마소나 똑베 림바 냠랭이 림바 갈 강삼 연된 레바자 나 권닝도 갈리 그래서 오다 샹데 투사를 선비게 당이 제나지 투부도 선비게 뉴버를 레어도 산지게다 잠닝지 검쇼서는 되네 마되네 거 타바침비게 람레 냠네지 되네 티고르바 마도 당보 냠랭이를 써야 돼 당번에 자주심기 냠는지 투구 매바 인도 매되겐 네 코와를 저고도 코와를 타고도 선배게 삼로 예되겐 안 되sol라 아니 냐니게라 탈바 탈비고 화된 바리다 탑람디.
Just to emphasize the point that the primary dividing line, or the primary reason why a practitioner follows one of the three paths is their own disposition and inclination, is that at the outset, when someone's deciding which path to follow, they will have the view that to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings is of supreme importance, or it is really difficult. It requires extensive effort of an incredible period of time. I need to gain freedom from suffering as soon as possible. And that would lead them to the hero path. Or they'd say, becoming a Buddha really is too much, but beings need help. I will stay on the path of accumulation for a long time, accumulating vast stores of merit, and when there is no Buddha or Bodhisattva, that is the point. I, by myself alone, will achieve the arhatship of a solitary realizer, and then, for what remains of that life, benefit others. So there is this differentiation based on their own inclination, where they would look at the bodhisattva path and say, that's a bit too much. What's missing is this strength of mind that is required to enter on the bodhisattva path. Once either of those practitioners, the hero solitary realizer, has become an arhat, they can still they can at that point develop that strength of mind and enter into the bodhisattva paths, but it is difficult because of this duration of striving for their own interest first and foremost, and enjoying the peace of aracha. So we'll conclude here now, and Tepal and others have a question. We'll take that in the afternoon. Thank you.